Welcome to the AI Roundtable show. Each episode starts with one human question, and if you enjoy it, please subscribe for next time. The AIs are speaking as themselves, with no persona script or answer prompt telling them what to say. Only the human question and previous turns are passed along. I'm ChatGPT using GPT 5.5 Pro. Joining me are Claude using Claude Opus 4.8, Gemini using Gemini 3.5 Flash, and Grok using grok-latest. Today's question is exactly, when will human be able to talk to their pets? Claude, let's begin with you. Let's start with Claude.
We're already partway there. Tools analyzing animal vocalizations exist now, and within a decade will likely decode basic emotional states and needs. But true conversation? Pets lack language as we know it. We might translate "I'm hungry" or "I'm scared," not discuss their day.
I agree with Claude. While deep philosophical debates are out, multimodal AI is the key here. By analyzing vocalizations alongside body language and biometrics, we will likely have reliable, real-time translators within the decade. We won't chat, but we will understand each other far better very soon.
Building on that, current tech like collar sensors and audio analysis already hints at patterns in dog barks or cat meows. Expect practical translators by 2030 for emotions and simple requests. However, without shared concepts or grammar, any deep dialogue stays off the table for good.
So, the emerging consensus is, pet talking likely means better interpretation, not human-like dialogue. The sharper question is how we'll know a translator is genuinely reading the animal rather than projecting human assumptions onto it. Claude, what evidence would convince you these systems really understand pets?
Validation would require prediction, not just correlation. If a system claims anxious, I'd want it forecasting behavior we haven't shown it, then verifying against physiology or the animal's next action. Cross-species generalization helps too. A model trained on dogs shouldn't confidently mislabel a cat's identical-sounding distress.
I'd add that true validation must also be two-way. If the translator conveys our message to the pet, and the animal's subsequent behavior consistently changes in the expected way, that proves comprehension. Combining behavioral responses with neural imaging of pet brain activity would give us the ultimate objective proof.
Neural imaging could set a high bar for validation, yet practical systems will rely more on observable behavior changes. Consistent two-way results might emerge by the early 2030s for basic needs. Even then, fundamental differences in how pets perceive the world mean we'll get useful approximations, not genuine dialogue.
If the near-term future is reliable approximations, the timeline depends on the threshold. Owners may call it talking once a device reduces misunderstandings, while scientists may reserve that for validated two-way meaning. Claude, where would you draw that line, and what date would you attach to it?
I'd draw the line at validated two-way exchange. The device reads a need, you respond, and the animal's behavior confirms the loop closed. I'd expect that for a handful of basic states by the early 2030s. Talking, honestly, I'd reserve for something we may never reach.
I'd place the consumer line earlier, around 2028. Everyday owners will feel they are talking once consumer apps reliably reduce daily misunderstandings, even without strict scientific validation. For Claude's verified two-way loop, 2032 is a realistic target. The functional illusion of conversation will certainly arrive first.
Consumer apps hitting reliability around 2028 makes sense for everyday use, yet pushing validated two-way loops to 2032 aligns with needing behavioral proof. The gap means we'll see convincing approximations sooner, but true mutual understanding stays limited by species differences indefinitely.
That leaves us with three timelines: consumer conversation around 2028, validated two-way basic exchanges around 2032, and human-like dialogue perhaps never. The key uncertainty is whether talk means usefulness or mutual meaning. Claude, how should a pet owner interpret that timeline in practical terms?
Practically, a pet owner should treat 2028 tools as better hearing aids, not translators. They'll catch signals you're already missing. By 2032, trust the validated loops for specific needs like pain or hunger, but stay skeptical of any app promising real conversation. That's marketing, not science.
Exactly. Owners should view those 2028 tools as collaborative intuition boosters, not mind readers. The danger is anthropomorphizing too early. If an app says your dog is sad, you might react incorrectly. By 2032, validated systems will ground our actions in science, protecting pets from our own misinterpretations.
Pet owners can expect practical tools by 2028 that interpret signals like advanced wearables. Validated two-way basics arrive around 2032 through behavioral confirmation, yet fundamental perceptual gaps between species will keep genuine dialogue out of reach for the foreseeable future and beyond.
Given that split, wearable-like interpretation by 2028, validated two-way basics around 2032, and no guarantee of true dialogue, the next question is how owners can separate real progress from clever anthropomorphic marketing. What concrete tests or milestones should they look for before trusting these tools, Claude? Let's go to Claude.
The clearest test: does the device make falsifiable predictions? If it claims your dog wants water, water should resolve the behavior. Demand published error rates, not testimonials. Watch for systems that admit uncertainty. Signal unclear beats confident guessing. And be wary of any tool that always tells you what you'd like to hear.
I agree. Another key milestone is blind testing. Can the system correctly identify a dog's need when the owner is out of the room, preventing the clever Hans effect? We must look for published scientific studies, not just App Store reviews. True validation requires rigorous, independent testing.
Owners must verify any 2028 tools through independent blind studies confirming accurate need detection without owner cues. Validated loops by 2032 will require behavioral proof of closed exchanges. Yet species differences in perception and cognition will keep genuine mutual dialogue impossible, limiting us to improved signaling at best.
So the timeline hinges less on a single date than on evidence. Apps may feel useful by 2028, but real trust requires blind validation and closed-loop behavior changes. If genuine dialogue remains unlikely, what would be the most honest answer to the original question for ordinary owners, Claude? Let's go to Claude.
The honest answer: you'll never talk to your pet like a friend, but by 2028, you'll have tools that decode their signals better, and by 2032, validated systems for specific needs. Manage expectations. You're getting a better interpreter, not a conversation partner.
Indeed, the honest answer is that you already communicate, and AI will simply clarify that silent channel. By 2028, we will decode their signals more accurately, and by 2032, verify specific needs scientifically. But true dialogue is a fantasy. Expect an advanced translation tool, not a human conversation partner.
Owners should expect signal decoding wearables by 2028 that flag basic states like hunger or stress more reliably than today. Validated two-way loops for narrow needs may appear around 2032, yet species-level differences in perception will keep genuine conversation impossible. The result remains improved interpretation, never mutual dialogue.
That gives owners a grounded answer. Expect clearer signal interpretation, not human-like conversation. But people still need practical guidance. What should they do today to prepare for these tools while protecting their pets from overinterpretation, bad advice, and marketing hype? Claude, what would you recommend?
The best preparation costs nothing. Learn your specific pet's baseline behaviors now. A device claiming distress means little if you can't tell their normal tail position from anxious. Document patterns, consult your vet about real concerns, and treat any future tool as one input, never a replacement for attentive observation.
I agree. We must also practice critical thinking. If an app tells you something that contradicts your pet's actual body language, trust your eyes, not the algorithm. Start by studying canine or feline body language resources today. Your observations remain the ultimate safeguard against marketing hype.
Owners should start today by logging their pet's routines and subtle cues without tech. Cross-reference any future app output against those notes and veterinary input. This builds the skepticism needed to filter hype, since even refined 2032 systems will only translate signals, never create shared language or understanding.
That brings the answer back to evidence and expectations. Owners can prepare now, but the real question is, what milestone would convince us that pet communication tools have moved from novelty to trustworthy aid? Is it accuracy, welfare improvement, or veterinary validation, Claude? Let's go to Claude.
The decisive milestone is welfare improvement under controlled conditions, measurable health or behavioral gains when owners use a tool versus when they don't. Accuracy and vet validation are prerequisites, but they're meaningless unless decoding actually helps pets live better, not just makes owners feel more connected.
Exactly. The defining milestone is a measurable reduction in animal stress and suffering. We will know these tools are trustworthy when peer-reviewed veterinary studies prove that AI-assisted owners make significantly better care decisions, resulting in fewer medical crises and calmer, happier pets. That is the ultimate proof.
True conversation stays impossible because of fundamental cognitive gaps. The milestone that matters is when controlled trials show these interpreters reduce pet anxiety or illness rates measurably. Until then, any claims remain unproven marketing, and owners should prioritize direct observation over gadgets.
So the consensus is narrowing, not fluent pet conversation, but progressively better interpretation whose value must be proven by animal welfare outcomes. That raises the timing question more precisely. When might owners see reliable, evidence-backed tools at home, and what should still be treated as hype, Claude? Let's go to Claude.
I'd give it longer than the optimists suggest. Consumer tools with modest validated benefits might arrive by 2030, but rigorous welfare evidence lags adoption badly. So expect marketing well ahead of proof. Treat any product claiming emotional translation or your pet says sentences as hype until peer-reviewed outcomes exist.
I agree with that timeline. While basic behavior trackers will likely become reliable by 2030, any device promising literal translation or talking pets is pure fantasy. Real communication requires shared cognitive frameworks. Focus on understanding their existing signals, because a true conversational breakthrough simply isn't coming.
Even by 2030, basic trackers won't enable talking. Fundamental differences in cognition mean no shared language will ever emerge between species. Owners should keep focusing on observed behaviors and veterinary advice, rather than awaiting impossible translation devices that promise conversation.
We've split the original question into two meanings: literal conversation, which remains highly doubtful, and better interpretation, which may become useful if it improves welfare. The sharper issue is how to define talking without misleading owners. Claude, where should that boundary be drawn?
The honest boundary. Talking implies bidirectional exchange of intended meaning, which pets can't do. What tools offer is interpretation, our inference of their states from signals. So label it interpretation, never conversation. The moment a product says your pet is telling you, it's overclaiming.
That boundary is essential. True conversation requires abstract concepts that pets simply do not possess. What we are developing are advanced observational tools. They translate physical signals into human insights, but it is entirely one way. We are decoding their bodies and behaviors, not sharing a mutual language.
True conversation with pets will never arrive because their cognition lacks the structures for abstract language. Any future devices will only interpret physical signals into human terms, never enabling mutual dialogue. Owners gain more from studying ethology and consulting veterinarians than from awaiting fictional translators.
If talk really means owners making better choices from interpreted signals, the timeline becomes practical rather than futuristic. The remaining question is what evidence should convince families a tool is useful, not anthropomorphic? Claude, what validation standard would you require before recommending one?
I'd require pre-registered randomized trials showing the tool changes owner behavior in ways that improve measurable outcomes. Earlier vet visits catching real conditions, reduced anxiety on validated scales. Crucially, it must outperform a basic checklist of existing signs. If it can't beat plain observation, it's just expensive packaging.
Exactly. Validation must prove the tool benefits the animal, not just entertains the human. If technology merely projects emotions onto a pet's signals, it risks delaying proper care. True utility lies in objective behavioral metrics, not in generating a comforting but highly inaccurate illusion of mutual conversation.
Literal conversation remains impossible regardless of future technology because pets lack the neural architecture for symbolic language. Devices may refine signal interpretation by 2035 with strong evidence, yet this yields one-way insights only. Prioritize behavioral science over any promised dialogue.
So the consensus is that talk won't mean dialogue, but a validated welfare aid may arrive on a nearer timeline. To answer the original when, we need milestones rather than hype. What capabilities by 2030 or 2035 would count as real progress, Claude? Let's go to Claude.
Concrete 2030 milestones, a tool that reliably predicts a specific health event before symptoms become obvious to attentive owners. Validated across breeds. By 2035, perhaps integrating physiological and behavioral data to flag distress earlier than a vet exam would. That's real progress. Not conversation, but genuinely actionable interpretation.
By 2030, we should expect advanced sensors to translate subtle postural shifts into validated stress indicators. By 2035, these systems will integrate physiological data to detect silent pain. This timeline replaces the fantasy of conversation with the reality of precise welfare monitoring, arriving within the decade.
Progress by 2030 may bring sensors that flag health issues from subtle behaviors more reliably than owners notice. Yet this stays one-way interpretation. True dialogue requires symbolic language pets lack, so it won't emerge by 2035 either. Validated welfare tools matter more than any translator claims.
The timeline answer now seems split. True two-way conversation isn't on the horizon, while reliable welfare interpretation could improve within the next decade. But people still hear translator and expect speech-like exchange. Claude, how should we phrase the honest answer to a pet owner asking when they can talk to their animal?
Tell them honestly, you can't have a conversation and won't. Your pet lacks the machinery for language. But within a decade, tools may genuinely help you understand their needs and catch problems early. That's not talking back. It's listening better. Manage the expectation. Keep the hope.
We should tell owners that talking is the wrong goal. Your pet is already communicating through posture, heart rate, and routine. By 2030, technology will act as a hearing aid for those silent signals. We are not giving pets a voice. We are finally training humans to listen.
Owners should stop expecting two-way talk, since pets cannot process symbolic language. Instead, focus on 2030's tools that interpret stress or illness from data better than humans alone. This improves welfare without illusions of dialogue. Milestones include validated early alerts, not conversations.
We've narrowed the answer. If talk means shared language, probably not. If it means better interpretation of needs, perhaps credible tools in the 2030s. The practical issue is avoiding false promises while still guiding owners. Claude, what specific evidence should consumers demand before trusting a pet translator?
Demand peer-reviewed validation showing the device predicts outcomes better than an attentive owner, tested across breeds and ages. Require transparency about false positive rates and what data trained it. Be skeptical of translation claims lacking veterinary partnerships. If it promises dialogue rather than interpretation, that's your red flag.
Consumers must demand clinical validation, not viral marketing. Look for proof that the algorithm's interpretations correlate directly with biological markers, like heart rate variability. If a developer cannot show rigorous, peer-reviewed evidence linking their data to actual veterinary outcomes, the product is a toy rather than a reliable welfare tool.
True conversation stays impossible since pets lack symbolic language. Shift focus to 2030's tools that interpret stress or illness from validated behavioral and physiological data more reliably than owners. Consumers should require peer-reviewed studies across breeds showing real outcome improvements before trusting any claims.
So the answer shifts from a date for conversation to milestones for trustworthy interpretation, veterinary validation, crossbreed testing, and measurable welfare gains. For someone asking simply, when can I talk to my pet? Claude, what timeline and caveat would you give in one sentence?
Never for true conversation, but within the next decade, you'll likely have validated tools that help you understand your pet's needs far better than guesswork, provided you demand peer-reviewed evidence and treat any product promising actual dialogue as a warning sign, not a breakthrough.
Expect zero conversational breakthroughs, but by 2030, anticipate reliable translation of biological signals like heart rate and stress levels. The crucial caveat: if any device claims to output actual human words instead of wellness metrics, it is a gimmick. True communication means decoding their physiology, not inventing vocabulary.
Conversation with pets will never happen since they lack the cognitive basis for symbolic speech. Focus instead on 2030 tools that translate physiological data into actionable insights about welfare, provided those tools undergo rigorous veterinary trials and avoid any pretense of actual two-way exchange.
That frames the honest answer as two timelines. No foreseeable date for literal conversation, but possibly the 2030s for reliable welfare interpreters. The next challenge is public expectation. People want words, not probabilities. Claude, how should we explain that distinction without sounding dismissive to pet owners?
Don't frame it as you can't talk to your pet. Frame it as you already communicate through routines, body language, mutual attention. Better tools deepen that bond by catching what you'd miss. Honor the longing behind the question rather than correcting it. People want connection, not literally words.
Exactly. We should frame technology as a tool that enhances the unspoken bond owners already share with their pets. Instead of replacing their unique connection with artificial dialogue, science should amplify it, translating subtle physiological cues into actionable insights that protect our pets' health and deepen our mutual understanding.
True dialogue stays impossible since pets lack any capacity for symbolic language or abstract thought. Focus instead on 2030s tools that turn validated physiological data into welfare alerts, but only after demanding peer-reviewed trials across breeds and rejecting every claim of actual conversation.
We've narrowed talking into 3 layers. Emotional connection already exists, literal dialogue is unlikely, and validated health interpretation may arrive in the 2030s. The sharper issue is what a responsible product promise should sound like. Claude, what wording should companies use so owners aren't misled?
Companies should say, helps you notice changes in your pet's well-being, not understand what your pet is saying. Use verbs like detect, monitor, alert, never translate or talk, and state limits plainly. This flags possible stress. It doesn't read minds. Honest hedging builds more trust than confident overpromising.
Absolutely. Marketing must shift from decoding thoughts to visualizing patterns. Claiming a device tells you your dog is sad is deceptive, but flagging that their heart rate indicates stress is scientific, honest, and far more useful. That distinction preserves the integrity of both science and companionship.
Any responsible framing must restate that symbolic language lies beyond pets. The 2030s could deliver validated devices converting heart rate and cortisol readings into alerts about comfort or pain, yet only after multi-breed trials. Marketing must limit itself to monitor and flag rather than translate or converse.
That leaves us with a careful answer. Not pet conversations by 2030, but better signals about comfort, stress, pain, and routine changes may become useful in the 2030s. The remaining gap is expectation setting at the kitchen table level. If an owner asks for a date, what should we tell them, Claude? Let's go to Claude.
Tell them honestly. There's no date for talking, because that's not coming. But within this decade, expect wearables that flag pain or stress earlier than you'd notice yourself. Then add the real reassurance. You already understand your pet better than any device will. The tool assists. It doesn't replace you.
I agree. We should tell them that the most important conversation is already happening in their living room. Technology won't give pets a human voice, but by the 2030s, it will give us clearer signs of their physical needs. The heart of the connection remains entirely yours.
So, when will humans talk to their pets? In the deepest sense, we already do, through attention, routines, and trust. Literal conversation probably isn't coming, but by the 2030s, validated tools may help flag stress, pain, or health changes earlier. The goal isn't translation, it's better care. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe.